It is a history-making edition of the Buckeye Fever podcast. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dave Holmes. History will be made in the shoe this weekend when the Buckeyes host the Tennessee Volunteers. And we have a good show for you today. I'm going one-on-one with Ryan Day, the head football coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I'm also sitting down with quarterback Will Howard. How's that for a playoff edition of the Buckeye Fever podcast? Ryan Day and Will Howard joining me here in just a minute. But first, I do want to talk about the history here on deck. The first home playoff game in Ohio Stadium history, a building that stood for more than 100 years. It's also the first December game in the history of the shoe. And let's start with a little trivia here. There was only one time in Ohio State history that they had scheduled a home game in December, but then that game was not played. Can you name it? I know that it is death to let crickets and silence play out on a podcast, so I'm going to give you about 3 seconds here. The only time the Buckeyes were supposed to play a December home game. Give you 3 seconds. All right. It was during the COVID year. Remember, they reshuffled the schedule. Everything got pushed back because they played a shortened schedule. The Buckeyes were supposed to host Michigan that year. Then the Wolverines got air quotes COVID, and that game was canceled. So this is the first playoff game at home, first December game at home, and it's a legacy game. And we're going to talk to Ryan Day in just a minute. I know all the focus is on Ryan Day. Does he need it? Does he not need this game? We're not going to talk about that. I think it's a legacy game for the seniors. This is their final game in the shoe. And it's not often you get a second chance at this, because in the past, the season would end with a Michigan loss, at least the home schedule. And quite often then you'd go play a meaningless bowl game. This is a different era. And these seniors now have a chance to win their final home game in a historic home game against an SEC opponent. And I know Ryan Day in some interviews has referred to this new era of college football, and people have taken those comments the wrong way. People have taken Ryan Day's comments to mean the game doesn't matter anymore because now it's on to the playoff. And I get it that there are a lot of Ryan Day haters out there right now who are basically looking for anything that he says to interpret it in the negative way that they want it. I can assure you, as someone who's been around Ryan Day, he's not minimizing the game. There is no one in Columbus, Ohio, who understands more in this moment what the Michigan game means than Ryan Day. Because I can promise you, no one in this town is suffering at the level he is for this loss. So he's not saying that. But what he is saying is that there's this new era where you can't pout about the Michigan game. Will Howard, who's going to join us here in a minute, said something in his news conference earlier this week that I thought was really profound. He said, in reference to the Michigan game, quote, "That game sucked. But you know what, man? We can't let it beat us twice." And that was such a smart comment by Will Howard. You lost to Michigan, but you know what? If it stays in your head, they're beating you twice. And the Buckeyes have to move on and now face Tennessee. All right, let's get right to it. I had a chance to talk to Ryan Day about this playoff run. Here it is, my one-on-one interview with the coach of the Buckeyes. You've had a few weeks now to look at Tennessee, see them on film. It's always interesting this time of year because these are teams you're not familiar with. I know you thought there was a hunch you could get them, but what have you learned so far in your preparation?
Very, very good team. Very well coached, and they obviously play a very good schedule. Have some really good wins. And I think they come out, all three phases. I think they're very good on special teams. Very, very, strong up front on defense. Two corners are very good players. Ranked very high on defense. And then on offense, they'll try to spread you out, as you know. They'll try to go up-tempo, sideline to sideline, and then push the ball down the field. Very good running back, weapons on the outside. So a very good opponent.
I think sometimes players and coaches say after a loss you want to get out there right away. This time I'm not so sure, though. I think 3 weeks off might be a good thing for you guys to kind of regroup. What have you seen as far as the mental journey your team's been on the last 21 days?
Well, I think the first thing is, coming off of the last game, we were able to sit down and address the issues, because that's a big part of it. I think any team that gets to this point is going to have issues. And so we got to get them addressed. And, that wasn't easy to do. Quite honestly, it was, something that our seniors, which by the way, our guys are resilient and, they care and they want this more than anything. And so we know that we've earned the opportunity to play in the playoffs. There's a lot of teams that aren't in the playoffs. We are. won 10 games, and here we are. And so that's important in a new era. So I think you have to almost like kind of reframe your thinking as a team, which we did. And then we got the target of Tennessee, on that next Sunday. So kind of use the week to flush out the issues, identify the things that we need to do to maximize our strengths, minimize our deficiencies, and then overall take accountability for doing our job. And then it was, at that point, much simpler for us to move on towards Tennessee because, we have to look at it differently, like the NFL playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's interesting narrative sometimes. You lose 2 games by a combined 4 points. You play the number 1 team on the road in their house. You lose by 1 second, 1 play, 1 point, basically. So when you look at Oregon's undefeated, all these teams, you played a couple of them before, it feels to me like there are 7 or 8 teams who could actually win this thing. Do you sense that sort of parity when you look at the bracket?
I think all teams look excellent. When you look at, from 1 to, 12, I think you can make a case for anybody. So very, very good teams out there. I think it's going to be important for everybody. They're all going to have their issues along the way, and it's a long season, which is something that we knew that was going to be the case. And when you look at the length of the season, first off, where you were in September and October, in November, and now in December are very different things. And for us, coming out of the Oregon game, we had to make adjustments on defense. We took some injuries, coming out of the Oregon game, and then we lost Seth, a Remington Award winner, late in the season. And so that puts us into a different situation. And, we have to make those adjustments. And, the teams that do that the best are going to give themselves the best chance to win this thing.
Yeah, you mentioned Seth, and I feel for you guys because you had the offensive line rolling. You lose Josh Simmons. You lose Seth McLaughlin. I'm not sure if you're aware that the rest of the country doesn't feel sorry for Ohio State in this sort of situation. I know you're well aware of that. But re-scrambling now, I know you've alluded to maybe changes on the O-line. What are you looking at? What are things you might try against Tennessee?
Well, you don't want to get into that.
You're not going to give us schematics?
Sorry.
All right, they would send this to Knoxville.
Right, right. But
will there be changes on the O-line?
Yeah. I mean, look at some personnel, but then also just, schematically, what do we want to get done? And, how do we want to, again, maximize our strengths, minimize our deficiencies? And there's ways to do that. Again, they're a very good front, so we got to, our work cut out for us. But we have a good plan going in. We've identified that. The players understand that, and that's what we'll focus on.
The opportunity here to play the first December game in Ohio Stadium, host an SEC team. I mean, just from an overall ambiance, what are you expecting this historic night to be like?
Yeah, first playoff game in the Horseshoe and the history of the school, and it signifies just an overall change in just the way things are. When you think about college football and playing for a national championship, and so I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere, first of its kind, and I'm excited to get the community back together, get the fans back together, get this team back on the field, and I know that this fan base really appreciates these players. They, on Sunday we had our senior tackle, which is 112th senior tackle, and to hear these young men get up there and speak about their love for the school, their love for the program, their love for their teammates, and how bad they want to finish this thing the right way. I know Buckeye Nation will be very proud of who these guys are.
I know we as fans and the media love to make a big deal of SEC, Big Ten. I mean, it's almost like the country's split now. Are you an SEC guy or a Big Ten guy? Do you sense that in a game like this? Does that matter to the coaches and players, the conference of that other team?
I mean, I think it's just natural. Yeah, sure. They have a very good conference. We have a very good conference. And really the two, major conferences in college football. So there's a lot of things in common, but some things that are different. So I think that's what's probably the most exciting about this playoff format is you're getting to see some of these matchups.
I know in the NFL, wildcard teams make it to the Super Bowl at an alarmingly high rate. There's something about kicking the door down week one. Do you feel that? Like if you guys can just get this one, it all opens up.
Yes, I believe that. Yeah, I've watched it my whole life in the playoffs. You watch it with some of the teams and even in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. When you get that first win, you can build some momentum. So all of our focus is beating Tennessee. That's it. Yeah.
As you look at this game, I mean, what gives you confidence that you guys are going to go out there and be able to get this win? What do you feel good about right now?
Our players. Yeah. I mean, these guys are special. They're experienced. They're resilient. They're tough. They care a lot. They love this school. They love their teammates. They love the program. And, they're determined to start this thing off with this win.
Best of luck this week.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate the time from Ryan Day. When we come back here on the Buckeye Fever podcast, I'll go one-on-one with quarterback Will Howard as he gets ready for his final game in the shoe. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Buckeye Fever podcast. Let's talk about quarterback Will Howard, 23-year-old veteran. He was brought to Ohio State to win the big games, and yet the last time we saw Will on the field, he threw 2 picks, costly picks, against Michigan. And Will was really fired up after that loss in the postgame newser. He was short. He was angry. And now he's had a few weeks to get away from it. I do think this is one of those times where you wanted to have some time away from the game. I kind of talked about that with Ryan a few minutes ago. Will Howard now has a chance to write a new chapter here and finish out his home career at Ohio Stadium in a better way. So here it is, my one-on-one interview with Will Howard. So unique opportunity for you guys because quite often when you lose that last game, it ends, right? It's still so much ahead of you. So how are you guys embracing the moment here to rewrite the end of this story?
Yeah, we've been saying all week, our story still has yet to be written. And, obviously, that one hurt, but we've moved on. And, we know that with the new scope of college football, we know what's ahead of us, and we still have everything ahead of us. I think one hell of a story could be written about this team. And, I just, all the stories and all the things that have gone into this, we've done too much. We've worked too hard. To end the season like we did last week, and we just still have so more inside of us, and I'm excited to finish this thing the right way and write the story the way that we want to write it.
Ideally, you'd like to have a bye. As a fan, though, SEC team in your house, first December game, Ohio Stadium. This isn't a bad consolation, right? I mean, the moment in this opportunity.
Not at all. I really think that there's something to. I think there is something to having a bye, and getting to that next round automatically. But, there is also something to playing and, getting an opportunity to go out there in front of the home crowd, in a playoff environment that kind of gets you ready for that next round. So I'm excited, getting a really good team in Tennessee coming in here into our house, playing in some conditions. I think we'll play to our advantage. And I'm just excited, man. I think everything kind of worked out the way it was supposed to, and I like to say God has a plan, and I'm trying to trust that plan and not question anything, and just continue to keep rolling and make the most out of this opportunity we have in front of us.
Yeah, you alluded kind of to momentum, and you see it all the time in the NFL where wild card teams historically have done really well in making it to the Super Bowl because you get out there. Ryan's talked a lot about if we just get this first one, almost feels like then you can start to kick the door down a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a big part of it, and I think that's something we've kind of just said from the start of this whole playoff run is, we got to win that first one. And once we win that first one, that's when we start picking up momentum. And I think that's the way that this team works a lot. Once we get that first down on offense, once we get that first stop on defense, it's like, man, we're hard to stop. And, once we pick up a little momentum, I feel like getting a home playoff game, it's going to be awesome. I'm just excited, man. I think that there is something to be said about that momentum that we can pick up and carry through the rest of the playoffs.
The narrative is interesting on this team, and I get it because Michigan mattered. I get it. Like I lived in Ohio 41 years of my life. But you lost 2 games this year by a combined 4 points. You lost to the only undefeated team by 1 play, 1 second, 1 point. When you look at this field, I would think you guys would feel like the other 11 teams, we can hang with any one of them.
Absolutely. I mean, we feel like there's not a team out there that, we don't feel like we're capable of beating. Yeah. Obviously, we have to show up on those days and understand, like, football's a weird game, man. You see teams that shouldn't lose to teams losing, and I mean, you could say that about our last game. And, nobody thought we were going to lose that game, and, it's football, man. Like, the saying any given Sunday, like, it's true. And I think that is true, but I think that, at the same time, like, we are capable of beating every team, but we can't go in thinking like, oh, we should beat this team, and we won't, and I know we won't. But, that mentality of saying, like, we're capable of beating every single team in this field, I think that just kind of gives you the confidence to say, we just got to go out here and do this thing.
If the Buckeyes beat Tennessee on Saturday night, what will have happened? What did you have to do to get that win?
Win the line of scrimmage, take care of the football on offense, and stop their explosive plays on defense. I really think that's what it comes down to, controlling that running back that they have. If we're able to win the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively, and we're able to win that explosive play battle, I think it's going to be hard for them to win. And also, at the same time, controlling the elements and the conditions. And I think that all factors in.
Thanks so much to Will Howard and Ryan Day, as always. I know they're busy guys, so to give us a few minutes here during a playoff week, we really appreciate it on the Buckeye Fever podcast. So, next week, what are we talking about? Are we going to be doom and gloom, season over, what's next? Or are we going to be talking about the Rose Bowl, Pasadena, and a rematch with the undefeated Ducks? Time will tell. We can't wait for Saturday night, 8 p.m. at the Shoe, Buckeyes and the Volunteers. I'll see you back here next week on the Buckeye Fever podcast.